Mike Wilson here, the host of Stutter with Confidence, the podcast, and I'm very happy today to be joined by Jessica Duluce. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you.
And now, if you would, please tell people where you live and what you do.
Yeah, so I am from Kamoka, Ontario, which is just outside of London, Ontario, in Canada, 2 hours south of Toronto, for those that aren't too familiar with Canada. And I am a senior HR generalist for a building materials lumberyard retailer. So I have 9 different retail branches and about 250 employees that I am in HR for.
Gotcha. So that's a lot of talking, a lot of interacting with people.
Yeah.
When you were younger, did you have worries like many of us that you wouldn't be able to have a job like that where you talk to people a lot?
Yeah, I think if you would have told me even at that light's about to fall at 13 years old, if I would have that I'd be in HR, I would have laughed at you. I think in the last 12 to 15 years, there's been a lot of growth and development with my speech, and I still wake up and I can't believe it. I know obviously there's good days and bad days, but I've done everything in my power to set myself up to just be able to keep on going every day.
And so, like many of us, do you have some pretty rough childhood memories surrounding your stutter?
Yeah, and it's things that honestly I'm sure a lot of people are like me in the sense that sometimes we like to just block them out, but I think I sometimes have to reflect on how far I've come since then. Um, it's I was fortunate enough in the sense that I actually grew up with a twin brother. So I got made fun of a lot. However, everyone was also petrified of my twin brother in school. So I kind of had that protector in a sense. And I'm really thankful for that because I can imagine how much worse my bullying probably would have been without him. So I'm really thankful for that.
That's definitely nice to have.
Yeah.
I had never uh, sort of thought about that as a possibility. Although I guess now that I think about it, I've had a couple people on the podcast that said they had a group of friends who sort of
Yeah.
who knew they stuttered and was not going to let
Yeah.
anybody mess with them.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's one of those things that when you don't know about stuttering, you people find it awkward, and especially with kids, they don't understand. And I think it's taken me a long time, but I don't hold any grudges. I don't I I feel bad sometimes, I think, for the kids that made fun of me, and I don't feel any remorse towards them because I mean, they're just trying to figure out life too at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And the normal reaction to something you don't know is to make fun of it or to laugh at it. And I'm caught in that in some circumstances. And so I can empathize with it. So yeah, as tough as it was, I think I look back on it now and I think that's why it's so great that there's the internet and all these different resources now so we can educate more and more people that they know what stuttering is, so they don't feel obligated to laugh or make fun of someone, especially kids, because that can have detrimental impacts on the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And the first episode of the podcast I did, so 50 plus episodes again, was with Nina G, or 50
Yeah.
plus episodes ago was with Nina G. And we talked about this need to forgive people, especially
Yeah.
some of those kids in childhood, which, for the vast majority of us who stutter, that
Yeah.
stuttering iceberg, right? That shame, that
Yeah.
embarrassment, feelings of inadequacy and like we're inferior so long as we stutter, that
Yeah.
sort of thing, you
Yeah.
know, goes back to childhood. And
Yeah.
there were oftentimes some certain, you know, a kid or kids who
Yeah.
had some moments,
Yeah.
whether they were laughing at, whether they were being intentionally mean or not, they
Yeah.
were still, middle school kids or
Yeah.
whatever age it was. I mean, we don't, um, yeah, I mean, everybody knows that the 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old
Yeah.
is not who, yet who they're going to be, right? So just because they weren't the
Totally.
nicest human in middle school doesn't mean they're
Yeah.
bad forever, of course, right? And
Totally. And I think and it's funny that you say that, because when I think of my grade school experience, I remember grades one, two, three, my stuttering was there, but it wasn't to me a thing. Okay. It wasn't till I think maturity starts around age 10, so middle school grades, that to me was when the bullying was like, those are the years that I remember being bullied, because that's when personalities start and you start learning more, and your kind of awareness of things really starts to elevate in those ages. And I mean, not just for kids that stuttering, I think bullying is probably the worst within those years for anyone. So having that stutter was just like, unfortunately, my added bonus on top of everything else that I was bullied on. So it my middle school years definitely were not my fondest, that's for sure.
well, and I mean, that's, I think when you look at the lifespan,
Yeah.
that's the meanest stage of life for
Oh,
just
totally.
humans in general.
Yeah. No, for sure. And it's funny enough. So, um, coming back to my twin brother. So coming back to right when I was young. So my parents actually noticed speech problems with both my twin and myself. So we both went for assessments and we went for everything. And my twin had more of the the lisp and those type of speaking problems, if you will. But myself, obviously, I just could not like get sounds out. So we did speech therapy together for a bit, and then I obviously had to keep going. He kind of graduated through notes. So what was nice in the sense that, because at such an early age he went through some of my therapy with me, ironically in grades 4 till grade 7, 8, we my parents actually put us back in the same class together. So we weren't in the same classes from grades 1 to 3, but for grades 4 to 6, him being there for me and going through therapy, and sometimes like when I would be stuck on something in class, rather than look at other kids who were laughing, I'd look at him, and it was like he was reminding me of my targets and some of my things to help me get through. So I'm really fortunate that I was able to have him through those years in school, because like I said, I couldn't imagine how my experience with my stuttering would have been without him there. And I really do owe him a lot for it.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, thinking, man, it would have been so nice to have someone like that,
Yeah.
um, because yeah, there was that sense that I had, and I think a lot of people that stutter have, especially in those, you
Yeah.
can almost call it the stuttering coming of age years
Yeah.
when so many of us, and I swear, I mean, I haven't counted it up, but probably 4 out of 5, you know, like 80% of the people that have had on the podcast,
Yeah.
it's middle school. It's that like 9,
Oh,
10, 11,
totally.
years old when they're
Yeah.
first have those moments when that's first dawning on them. Oh, I'm different, and
Yeah.
people are noticing it, and I'm
Yeah.
getting some some of that
Yeah.
negative feedback
Yeah.
and feeling like a weirdo. And but
Yeah.
for most kids, it's like they're all alone in those moments, totally
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
And I mean, in general, with stuttering, for most of us, we're the
Yeah.
only person we know. And maybe, some people,
Yeah.
when they say half of people have somebody else in the family that stutters, but
Yeah.
from the conversation I've had, though, with folks who stutter, most of them say the other people in their family that stutter, like nobody ever talked about it in many, many cases.
Exactly.
So it was like the silent, under the
Yeah.
rug thing. So even
Yeah.
if there was another person that stutters, it just wasn't being talked about.
Totally.
And so, and I think that persists for many of us, that
Yeah.
sense of isolation, like we're
Yeah.
alone in this thing. And so in your journey, it was obviously huge to have your brother there.
Yeah.
Did you still feel at times as a kid, though, like as far as fully understanding and having to deal with the stutter, like you were alone?
Yeah. And I think part of my problem was as well. So probably by grade 4, when my stuttering, like I mentioned, I didn't notice it. And then I feel like at that pivotal 10 years old, grade 4 range, I feel like my fluency went from, I'd say, a 50, it probably declined to a 30 or 20%. Like I was very, very, very not, I don't want to say insufficient, but I just could not form sentences.
You were
Um,
struggling way more.
I was very much struggling. And unfortunately, because of that, rather than put myself out there and keep going, I continued to isolate myself. So I stopped doing presentations in front of the class. I waited till recess and I did them. I I made sure that my parents told my teachers she's not allowed to read out loud in class. Like, do not let her do that. Like, I kept putting the people that cared about me and wanted me to keep going and not give up. I told them, I don't want to do anything. Just let me sit there in silence and let me just learn, because clearly I can't talk. And there are so many great presentations and so many cool topics that I did in school that I think everyone would have really liked. And if they still to this day don't know, because I never did it in front of them. I did it by myself with my teacher. And so sometimes I look back and I mean, at the end of the day, your parents want to do what's best for you, but they don't want you to go to school scared. So I think rather than keep pushing me, they're like, you know what, if she wants to do it at recess, then we're going to let her.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. I've got 4 kids between the ages of 5 and 11. They don't
Yeah.
stutter, but I totally understand the urge to protect your kids from any of
Yeah.
those tough moments, you know, and now, obviously
Yeah.
as adult people who stutter, we know, like if we had a kid that stuttered, we
Yeah.
know the last thing they need to be doing is avoiding speaking situations, right?
Yes.
But
Totally.
when you're a parent who doesn't know that, like most of it, most of
Yeah.
course don't, and your kid, they're just, you know, petrified of that, and that every fiber of their being doesn't want to have to speak and
Yeah.
stutter and risk
Yeah.
stuttering in front of people.
Yeah.
It's certainly understandable to want to protect them.
Yeah.
But again, the most productive thing for anybody that stutters,
Yeah.
in my opinion, is
Yeah.
to get to the point where they're absolutely not avoiding it, not running away
Yeah.
from it, because that's
Exactly.
what, first of all, right, by definition, everything that we don't say
Yeah.
doesn't get communicated. So there's zero
Exactly.
communication, right, when we don't
Yeah.
say it.
Yeah.
Um, And there's a lesser communication when we say something, but we just change it to whatever we can say. And if we
Yeah.
want to say, someone asks our favorite, food, and we
Yeah.
want to say it's, whatever, spaghetti,
Yeah.
but we don't say spaghetti. We say it's, hamburgers or whatever. Well,
Yeah.
that we said something, but
Yeah.
we basically ended up lying because we
Yeah.
were, didn't want to stutter.
Yeah.
Uh, so, so at some point in your journey, you obviously uh, started facing, as I like to call it, the stuttering wolf.
I
Um,
did.
was there a particular moment in your journey, or was it a gradual evolution?
Yes, and her name is Lori Holmes. I so just to maybe go over my speech to therapy journey. So in London, Ontario, at Western University, previously known as the University of Western Ontario, um, they have a speech pathology clinic and program at Melbourne College, which is affiliated with the university. Um, from my recollection of my speech therapy when I was 3 or 4, that's where I started my speech therapy. It was with speech pathologists, students, with clinicians that would watch them. And so once we realized that my speech was a lot more serious, my parents moved me in over to the privatized kind of speech therapy realm. And I went to, I'd say, 2 or 3 different private speech therapists, and I hated them. I did not mesh with them. I would cry going. I just did not want to be there. Just wasn't my thing.
And
And
Jessica,
yeah,
were they trying to basically teach you how to not stutter? Was that the objective?
yeah. And there was that, but then I think when you're a kid, you really go off vibes, you know? And I feel like I just wasn't vibing with these previous speech therapists. And I don't know if it was maybe because they didn't have kids or they were on their way to retirement. Like, I'm sure they were great for other people. It just, for me, it just wasn't working at 8, 9, 10 years old.
Well,
So
I would
yeah,
add on that point,
yeah,
they might have been great for other speech conditions,
yeah,
but it's very
absolutely.
unlikely that they were helping the
Yeah,
other kids who stutter, because the track
yeah,
record, I mean, especially
yeah,
when the goal is to fix the kid's stutter, which from
yeah,
what I understand from Dr. Courtney Bird, for
yeah,
example, who runs a program at UT Austin.
yeah,
From what Courtney said, and I've heard this from others whose opinion I respect,
yeah,
the evidence at best is very mixed.
yeah,
That working with, say, 4 or 5-year-olds, teaching them not to
yeah,
stutter, is actually increasing the percentage of those kids who will, who will outgrow the stuttering, who will not grow
yeah,
up to be adults who stutter.
yeah,
Um, so, and this is something which has occurred to me after the fact. I obviously had no idea at the moment. I was just speaking to my parents earlier today, about this, and
yeah,
they had no idea either. We
yeah,
all thought, we were sort of told by our speech therapist, look, as long as little Michael is doing what he should be doing, this
yeah,
should work and he should not
yeah,
stutter. And so that's what my parents thought. That's what I thought. And then when that didn't
yeah,
happen,
yeah,
when I was still stuttering every day going through my life,
yeah,
you know, yeah, and again, as a little kid, I don't remember caring at all. But when I got to 11,
yeah,
first started getting made fun of all of a sudden,
yeah,
right? And then you're sort of looking at yourself like, God, I'm failing. The therapist
yeah,
is telling me this should help.
yeah,
I'm failing at it every day. And
yeah,
it like deepens our iceberg, I feel like.
absolutely. And for me, so I met Lori Holmes and we clicked. And I think what set her apart from everyone else is that she challenged me because I was a very shy kid because of my speech, but I was very extroverted. So she could see that light in me and she challenged me every week. But what was something that she did that no other previous speech therapist did is she also challenged my parents to work with me. And my parents read with me all the time. My parents challenged me. They made me pick up the phone when I could not say hello. Like, it takes me a lot to say it now on the phone, but I just refused. And our tools and our targets that Lori and I worked on for, God, it felt like sometimes my sessions were like 20 hours when it was just 1 hour, just doing the same repetition of tools or targets. That's what I call like my speech toolbox. And just going over, and I'm like, what is going on? Why are we doing this? But it clicked. And to this day, I would still call her my speech therapist. It's more of a social thing now where we check in and we kind of talk and just see how one another are. If I really need her, especially through COVID, I sent her a thing right when COVID first started, being like, oh my God, like what is happening to my speech? I feel like I'm going downhill. And she's like, okay, like let me know if you need me, type of thing. But like I owe her everything due to how fluent I am today. Absolutely.
And would you say, looking back, well, can you assign a percentage to it as to how much of the value was from her challenging you and getting you to face your fears and getting your parents to sort of make you face your fears and how, well, let me just
Yeah.
tell you how I think about this.
Yeah.
So, you know, the stuttering iceberg analogy, obviously,
Yeah, I do.
which is coined by Joseph Sheehan. So that 80 to 90% of the iceberg, right, is
Yeah.
below the surface. That's the shame, the
Hmm.
embarrassment, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And then the actual stuttering is what people see, right? What's sticking up
Yeah.
above the surface.
Absolutely.
And so my perspective on this
Hmm.
is like an athlete. If an athlete is playing scared,
Yeah.
there's no way they can ever reach their physical potential on the field or on the court, right?
Absolutely.
If you're playing scared, you're just, you're not going to be able to hit that shot. You're not going to be able to,
Yeah.
hit the baseball, whatever the sport is.
Yeah.
But if and getting back to stuttering, so if you can melt that fear, shame, embarrassment stuff below the iceberg, suddenly
Yeah.
the stuttering above the iceberg gets a lot more wobbly, right? A lot
Yes.
more susceptible, to a solid technique,
Yeah.
and it does take practice, no doubt. But to me, at least,
Totally.
the getting rid of the fear and just not being terrified of
Yeah.
stuttering in the world, and be like, I stutter,
Yeah.
it is what it is a game changer.
Well, I think, yeah, you nailed that perfectly. Because with me and Lori, it came down to positive self-talk. And I still have my binders. So Lori would give me like a summary every week of what we worked on. So I have these binders. Okay. And I would say on almost every single one of them, and I'd say probably after a year, 2 years of going to her, it was less about my tools and techniques because I knew them. And it was more about my positive self talk. And if I didn't believe in myself that I could do it, regardless of my parents believing in me, and my brothers believing in me, Lori believing in me, if I didn't, my speech was not going to be good that day. So I had to wake up every day and say, Jessica, you're going to do it. Whether you like it or not, you are going to go to school, you're going to raise your hand, you're going to read out loud in class, you're going to do it. And I mean, I still have my good days and bad days. Well, I think just like any normal human being, but it took me a long time to build that positive self-talk. And positive self-talk with me doesn't necessarily mean confidence, because if I had the positive self-talk about my speech nailed, then the confidence grew. So it was kind of a twofold thing. So yeah, it's one of those things that I still think about it every day when I wake up and I get ready. I'm like, okay, what are we gonna do today? I got this. I have X, Y, and Z going on. Like, you can do this.
So it's like making, well, and as you do that, say you can do that, you're also saying, I'm going to do this, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is my decision for today. I'm not running away
Yeah.
from it. I'm stepping
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
And, even if the stuttering wolf is getting some
Yeah.
nips in, I'm still moving forward, right? I'm not running
Yeah.
away from it. Um,
Yeah.
which I think is so key,
Yeah.
and getting back to what we said earlier, everything that we don't say,
Yeah.
right? By definition, nothing is communicated.
Yeah.
My 5-year-old knocking on the door there. They're going to go jump at Sky
That's
Zone
okay.
here, which we will do after this
No.
call.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything that we don't say, of course, nothing is communicated.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the deepest
Yeah.
pain of stuttering, is feeling
Yeah.
like you can't say the things that you want to
Yeah.
say, right? That is
Yeah.
like living in one of my episodes recently with Dong Shi Bao was,
Mhm.
entitled Breaking Out of the Social Prison or something like that,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
being in a social prison for a species that is as fundamentally social as we are
Yeah.
is, um, that's a
Yeah.
rough experience to be living in that box, so to
Totally.
speak. And when you realize, even if I stutter, I can still say it. There's no
Yeah.
laws against
Yeah.
stuttering. Nobody goes to jail for it. Nobody has to go to the hospital
Exactly.
for it. The world never, goes hurtling out of the
Yeah.
orbit into interstellar space. It's actually not the end of the world.
And it's funny you say that, because one of my biggest pet peeves, and to anyone that knows me that watches this, I apologize if I'm calling you out right now. But if you know I stutter and you still try and finish my sentences for me, to me, that is like, it's one of my biggest insults and pet peeves to myself, because it makes me feel as if they don't think I can do it. And I try and educate people as much as I can. Sometimes I'm like, is it worth the fight going down this? But sometimes I do and they learn. But it's for people I don't know that kind of do it because they think I forget or I'm cold. That's a great one, that they're like, oh, you're cold. I'm like, no, I have a speech fluency. I stutter. Like, it's one
So,
thing.
so can I say real quick? I'm sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
you there.
Yeah.
So, um, Christina, I forget what her married name is now, but
Yeah.
she was on the podcast early on, one of the first
Yeah.
5 episodes, and she's from Canada also. And I
Yeah.
believe, I'd have to go back and watch the episode, but I'm 99 point something percent sure that it was her. The only other person that I've personally heard who said someone would ask her if she was cold when she was
Yeah.
stuttering, and she's from
Yeah.
Canada too. That might be a Canadian thing. I don't know.
You know what? I wouldn't hold it past Canadians, honestly.
Well, it's
Like,
cold in Canada, so
yeah,
so
it is.
probably a lot of the times when they see people stuttering, they were cold.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't hold it past us, to be honest.
Because they're very polite and they're trying to be nice.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Are you cold, honey?
Yeah.
I'll help you.
Yeah. Like, I will say, like, I admit I'm a pretty avid Starbucks drinker, and for me, my hard consonants are my worst. So J, P's, D's. So having the name Jessica Duluce really isn't that fun for me, let me tell you, especially introducing myself to new people. So at Starbucks, when they ask me what my name is for my cup, I stopped changing my name because I'm better than that. I say Jessica, and they ask me, did I forget my name, or if or if I'm cold. Sometimes I let it go, but other times, depending on the mood I'm in, I'll say, no, actually, I have a speech fluency. I then get my drink for free. So it kind of depends, but no, to my family and my friends that do try and finish my sentences for me and stuff like that, I know it means well, but drives me nuts. It really drives me nuts. And I need to work on trying to educate them a bit more on that.
So, you know what my favorite line was, or, was and is when
Yeah.
need be, which it took me a while to find this, but it worked well for me. So,
Yeah.
if either someone, sometimes people would ask,
Yeah.
hey, Mike, when you're having a stuttering moment, is it cool for me to try to finish your sentence, or would you rather me not do that?
Yeah.
And my response was, well, I'm fine with it so long as you guess right. So in other words,
That's amazing.
unless you're damn sure what I'm going to say, like if I'm saying
Yeah.
a cliche like the grass is and it's going to be greener, okay. But if you're not 100% sure, please don't finish my sentence.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think I have only had one person ask me about it. So if I do have another person, I might pull that out. I really like that.
Well, I think you could say it too, even if they didn't ask, but they're finishing your sentences. This would
Yeah.
be sort of a nice-ish, polite-ish way to say it to get your
Yeah.
message across. You could say, hey, whoever the person is, Ralph, that's fine if you finish my sentences when I'm having a stuttering moment.
Yeah.
But please, the only thing I ask is that you
Yeah.
only do it when you're positive that you're guessing right.
Yeah. Totally.
Right? You send the same message, and it's polite. That's fine. But just
Yeah.
make sure you're right.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's amazing.
Well, and so as far as a big moment in your life, as you had shared a video with me
Yeah.
before this chat, which I think was maybe from late in high school for you.
Yes. 2013. So that was
2013.
that was a while ago.
Time flies, huh? But it looks like you were maybe speaking in a church or some sort of a
Yeah.
large auditorium or something in front of a lot of people, and you
Yeah.
want to tell us about that speech?
Yeah.
The lead up,
So
the lead up to the speech, if you would, if you had, some
absolutely.
anxiety and such, and then how it went.
So I guess maybe to set the scene. So let's go back to 2011. I was in grade 10 and I was in high school. By this point in my stuttering journey, I had my toolbox and it was full. And I had kind of everything ready. It was now all on me. And I apologize for the phrase, but it was like shit or get off the pot. Like I had to do what I had to do. I had every resource available to me. I had people that believed in me, and it was all on me. At this point in my life, Lori turned in more to my therapist, I feel, than she did speech therapist, because my stuttering was very dependent on how my life was. So keep in mind, grade 10, 2011, I was 16. So boys, friends, university, a lot of social aspects in my life, and that played a part on my speech. At the same time, my twin brother, that is still my best friend and was my best friend in elementary school, we were boy-girl twins. He was Mr. Hockey player athlete. He was Mr. Popular, and I was known as Alex's twin sister. And there was a point in high school where I was given the opportunity to go to the Appleby College, which is a private boarding school in Oakville, Ontario, which is just outside of Toronto. And I was given the opportunity, and my parents said, do you want to go? And it meant no speech therapist. It meant my parents weren't there. I was on my own. And I would, for the first time in my life, be known as Jessica Duluce, not as so-and-so's twin. I was just me. And it was terrifying, but I did it. So that fall 2011, I went for grade 11. That spring, I applied to be the president or the prefect of my boarding house, and I won. I got all the votes, or however it worked. So I was elected as the prefect, and the role of the prefect was every boarding house had a chapel week at the school. It was a multi-faith school, so we had a themed week, and that speech that I sent you was my speech. Could I have backed out based on my stuttering? Probably, but I didn't want to be the only one that never did it. I wanted to face my fear. I think being on my own, I gained a lot of confidence being independent because I only had myself to rely on. And I really wanted to prove it to myself more than anyone that I can do it. So that speech, it was about, I diverted my speech. So the majority of my speech was about my stuttering, which was on courage, but my theme for the week was actually responsibility. So I kind of tied that all in, but I really wanted to use that platform as a chance to educate people, because I'm sure not too many people knew about it. And what's great about my experience at boarding school was it was from people. My speech was said to two different students from all over the world. So maybe everyone had their own experiences with it previously from where they're from, or maybe they didn't, but I was able to talk to a vast array of people, and it was awesome. The one thing I will say about my speech is, if you can, as you could probably hear, I was very fluent through it. I was also given the opportunity when I was in grade 8 to try and have one of the speakeasies for mine here. I don't know, have you heard of them before? There's a few different ones out there.
Yes, I've heard of them, and I
Yeah.
actually tried one for like a week, and it worked for a
Okay.
couple days, and then I wasn't
Yeah.
able to hear what other people were saying because I was hearing myself in my
Oh,
voice and all that. But
yeah, for sure. So my experience with it, would I wear it every day? No. For something like a big presentation, my speech in front of my school, yes. So I did wear it that day, and I don't know if I turned it on or not. I can't remember, but it was there for like a comfort almost. So I kind of utilized it, and I don't remember saying the speech. I think I'm blacked out for the entire 7 minutes. I really don't remember. But I'm really happy I did it. And I think after that moment, I felt like I could do almost anything.
nice. And
That was a very long-winded answer, so I apologize.
no, it's good stuff. And what was what was the general response from people after the speech?
I think they were all really proud of me. I'm really happy that I made a really great group of friends at Applebee, and they all knew how freaked out I was. And so they were there beside me, just ready. and they were all really proud of me. Unfortunately, Lori was not able to attend. I invited her. I wanted her to be there. But my parents were there, my two brothers were there, and them being there more than anything meant the world. So and everyone, I think, was just really proud of me.
That's super cool. And so you would say that was, this kind of reminds me, so Michael Jordan, the great basketball player,
Yeah.
talks about how there was one moment in his career that
Mm-hmm.
he felt really catapulted his confidence, where he's like, I can do things at a big time level. And that's when he made a game winning shot
Yeah.
his sophomore year. No. He was a freshman, actually, when he played for North Carolina,
Yeah.
which won the national championship for North Carolina in 1983, maybe.
Yeah.
And he talks about that as being a key moment in his career,
Yeah.
because it gave him the belief
Yeah.
that he could, do things at a higher level that he ever knew that he could before. Was that one of those moments for you, would you say?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think it was because it's the first time that I quote addressed the elephant in the room. Since then, I think I have been very open and honest about my speech. I used to just kind of ignore it when people would talk about it and would want to talk about it, but I want people to know more about it. I want people to understand what it is and why it happens. And yeah, I think from that point of view, it was kind of really my light bulb where I need to start telling more people about this. Yeah.
And sort of like a full coming out of the closet, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
This is who I am with this, you guys. And
Yeah.
I like to call it proclaim it from the rooftops, just,
Yeah.
and with stuttering, there's some problems that people have that, might not be
Yeah.
ideal to talk about it if you got some sort of, whatever, I don't know,
Yeah.
like an STD or something like that. You might not want to go around talking about it, sort of thing. But with stuttering,
Yeah.
it certainly makes life so much better just to be
Yeah.
open and honest. So that way we don't have anything to
Yeah.
hide anymore, right? This is
Yeah.
how it is.
And I think with that said, so you mentioned that a lot of kids do outgrow stuttering. Um, Unfortunately, and it took me a really long time, I had the poor me mentality. Like, why? Like, why am I the one that couldn't outgrow it? And to be honest, when I have my bad days, that is one of my kind of like, what the hell? Like, come on. Like, why couldn't I outgrow it? Like, I tried so hard as a kid. And I think when I said that speech, it kind of made me realize that there are people and there are individuals in or in around our world that do stutter, and they are horrified to tell people about it and educate it and educate people. So if I could be that advocate for them, then to me, living with this for the rest of my life is going to be well worth it. So,
I
yeah.
love that. I love that. And I think of the podcast in those terms also. It's
Yeah.
stuttering is one of those things that it it's a different animal
It
when we're
is.
hiding it in the closet as opposed
Yeah.
to, sort of exposing it
Yeah.
to sunlight, so to speak. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. When you expose it to
Yeah.
sunlight, the sunlight disinfects a lot of our
Yeah.
feelings
It
surrounding
does.
our stutter.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
something I like to think about. Yeah, the kids are relentless back there. So
Okay.
uh, so it's that that sense of I need to fool people. I need to try to fool
Yeah.
people as to who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and convince the world that I don't have a speech impediment and
Yeah.
maybe try to convince myself that I don't have
Yeah.
a speech impediment just makes the stuttering wolf grow in power.
Yeah.
And when we shine the spotlight on him and say, we're shining it, here it is for everybody, the
Yeah.
wolf is like, what? You're talking about
Yeah.
me? Really? I'm supposed to
Exactly.
be like creeping around in the dark and I can jump out and
Yeah.
maim you and you just sort of feel sorry for yourself and
Absolutely.
be quiet, sort of a thing.
Yeah. No, and it's funny that now I'm working in HR, and a big component of our world right now is diversity and inclusion. Um and in Canada, we recently just went through our accessibility for Ontarians, and one of the kind of elements to that is like, are we ensuring that everyone has tools as employees? Do they have the resources, and are they educated? So if anyone with whatever they have comes to them, do they know how to react appropriately? And this is something that, as I grow in my career, I really want to do more research in, and I want to really educate people in. It's not just limited to stuttering, but all these other different, I don't like saying the word things, but it's the most neutral word to me. Um, all these other things that people have, I want them to be treated with respect. I don't want them to be laughed at. I don't want anything. And I really hope that our world can eventually get there. I think we are. I mean, we're getting there slowly, but I really do think that one day everything will just be accepted. And I can't wait for that. It may not be in our time, but it will eventually. It has to.
We've come, certainly in the modern world. I mean, anybody who's studied the history books on this knows that we've come a
Yeah.
long way. Not that we're all the way there for sure,
Yeah.
but accepting and celebrating even
Yeah.
differences
Yeah.
is something that's key. And
Yeah.
for people that stutter,
Hmm.
for almost all of history, I think making fun of differences was very accepted and very
Yeah.
common, even for adults,
Yeah.
Um, and so it's absolutely, key, I think. And this is coming back to that same theme. The world will be cool. The vast majority of people
Yeah.
will be cool if we speak up.
Yeah.
And, one of the things with stuttering, it can be a hidden difference, right?
Yeah.
For somebody who's a certain, say,
It's
skin
invisible.
color or gender or sexual
Yeah.
orientation or disability, most things are pretty obvious
Yeah.
to people, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, this person
Yeah.
has a different,
Yeah.
whatever the difference may be. But with ours, if it's hidden and if
Yeah.
we're doing our damnedest to hide it, right?
Yeah.
We're intentionally making it hidden for understandable
Yeah.
reasons. I'm not
Yeah.
criticizing any of the reasons. It's not a coincidence that almost all of us, 99+% of
Yeah.
us, at least go through a stage where we're
Totally.
absolutely trying to hide, right? It's
Yeah.
human nature to want to fit
Yeah.
in, especially as a kid, right? To not want
Yeah.
to be different. And that's where our character and our perspective is
Yeah.
forming as a kid. So it's totally understandable, but there's so
Yeah.
much power. And when we speak up, when we say, I'm saying it anyway, when we
Yeah.
stutter in the
Yeah.
world,
Yeah.
that is
Wow.
that alone is educating people.
So this could be a totally other episode for you one day. But what's funny about this, so I'm 26. So I'm in the age where I'm dating. Currently, a lot of dating's online. This is my new struggle where, do I say something or do I wait? And because everything's online first, right? So do I disclose this before, or do I go and see what happens? Like, it's very interesting that you brought that up, because my speech has evolved in numerous ways as I've grown. And now I'm in this whole new realm that I'm like, I don't know what the heck to do. So yeah, it's interesting.
I hear you on that. And I
Yeah.
got married 12 years ago. So that was,
Yeah.
largely before the dating revolution, where most dates are generated
Yeah.
online.
Yeah.
And I understand what you're saying. You don't want to, well, there are various considerations.
Yeah.
My thought, my principle, at least based on how I think about these things, is,
Yeah.
maybe let them know in advance. And if they
Yeah.
don't want to see you still because of that, it's a
Yeah.
good filtration mechanism to
Yeah.
get rid of those people.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and that's the thing, because so my speech is very now dependent on, am I nervous? Did I get enough sleep? Have I worked out? Have I fueled my body? Like at work, like, do I have a determination? Do I have a difficult conversation? Like it varies based on my situation. So on a first date for me, I think, regardless of telling the person or not, my speech is going to be a lot higher than it probably normally would. So yeah, it's uh, I don't have a I don't have a right answer yet. If anyone that watches does, let me know, because
On my,
it's yeah.
you know, my approach is radical honesty.
Yeah.
So I would encourage, my thought on it, and
Yeah.
you can gather different opinions, of course, but
Yeah.
my thought is that in keeping with that radical honesty principle, let them know on the first date.
Yeah.
Like, hey, just so
Yeah.
you know, as a person who stutters, uh, when we're a little bit, nervous, a little anxiety, as sometimes happens on a first date, I might stutter
Yeah.
more this first date. You know,
Yeah.
it'll it's a variable
Yeah.
thing, so it's not always going to be
Yeah.
like that. However, if it's too much for you, no worries.
Yeah.
We don't have to have a second date.
Trust me. Yeah. I will not be hurt. Trust me.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, that'll show both, that you're honest, that you're showing some vulnerability, at the same time, some strength
Yeah.
and some courage and some character, because you're like, hey, just putting it out there. So I think it shows, it's a good mix.
Yeah.
Use it.
Yeah. No, for sure. Next time I get on there, I will.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well,
Yeah.
Jessica, it's been fantastic talking with you. And, you mentioned the topic for a second episode. I'd, love to have another chat with you sometime. It
Yeah,
was really,
absolutely.
it was really fun. And I think people will get a lot out of this. And I think your
Yeah,
story is the kind of trajectory that shows people that you can go from uh, from shame to courage.
yeah,
And once you get to that courage, and I firmly believe that the thoughts and the perspective follow the action. So the fact that you
absolutely.
started taking action with
Yeah,
with your good speech therapist, we'll call her, and
absolutely.
you start facing the wolf, and the wolf
Yeah,
doesn't know what to do with somebody that just steps into the arena with courage. So
absolutely. No, I think I it's taken me a while, but I can confidently say at 26, I'm very proud of the person I've become. I can't wait to see what else I do. I know my story and helping people is hopefully only just beginning. Um, Something that we didn't touch on that I will just tell you quickly is a dream of mine and something I am hoping to have going by the time I turn 30. So I have 3-ish more years. Um, I would really love to get a foundation and a not-for-profit started for kids under the age of 18 whose parents may not have insurance to allow them to afford speech therapy. And I would love to have a process that they can apply and we can provide them funding for therapy. I really think finding the right person to help your child and having them work so closely with parents is such an important and key component to someone's stuttering journey. And it makes me sad that, at least in Ontario and in Canada, I don't know what it's like in the States, but insurance companies are not providing money for speech therapy. I'm fortunate that the company my dad works for did, like, to the point that I could go once a week, 52 weeks a year. That's rare now. So I really am hoping to get this going and to continue to educate and share and show people what you can do with the resources in place.
Yeah, from what I understand, the same problem exists in the US with insurance
Yeah,
companies not wanting to pay for stuttering therapy. I'm not sure at what age that's applicable, but I know it's very
yeah,
common for adults. I'm not
yes,
positive with
absolutely.
kids. And I think they don't want to pay because they're like, we don't see any evidence
Yeah,
that the speech therapists know how to, fix the speech of the people that
yeah,
stutter. So we're not just going to pay for something that's not really showing
yeah,
efficacy. Um,
totally.
but they don't, they don't really, they probably are not particularly educated on the mental health side of it. And that
Absolutely.
somebody that's hiding and avoiding and not living the life they want to live and saying what they
Yeah,
want to say is going to have more, mental health challenges
yeah,
oftentimes, and just
absolutely.
a miserable life, relative to what
Absolutely.
they could be living, So I think
Yeah,
there's a lot of education to be done there to the insurance companies also that,
yeah,
look, if you, and I'm fine with them saying, look, we're only gonna fund therapy for therapists that are paying a lot of attention, even a primary focus to the below the iceberg stuff,
yeah,
not just focusing on, hey, let me teach you some techniques, but you still walk out of this room every week terrified of getting back to the real world.
yeah,
I'm fine with holding them accountable like that. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, to not be helping people that stutter at all when they have insurance seems like
exactly.
a major uh, problem. And I like the
Yeah,
fact that
absolutely.
you're thinking about ways to solve that and have a plan
Yeah.
for how to do it. I like people with a plan that do things. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's a work in process trying to apply for, like, not for profit stuff. So it's just a lot of kind of legal things I'm starting to look into and whatnot. But I'll definitely keep you posted on my progress. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what potential that this has. I'm struggling with a couple different options for a name for it, so I'll send you those. I'll let you vote on which one you like.
Sounds good. I will give you my opinion for sure. And
Perfect.
you can gather a bunch of opinions. You learn,
Yes.
like, hear a bunch of stuff. It sort of
Yeah.
bounces around your brain, and you decide what you want to do. So that's good stuff.
Yeah.
And we wish
Yeah.
you all the luck,
Thank
Jessica.
you.
And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Bye.
Bye bye.